The Zephyrian war fleets arrived at the Kepler 442 system like a swarm of angry metal wasps. 3 massive battle groups took positions around the system in a formation designed to trap any ship trying to escape. Admiral Veltar commanded from his flagship at the center of the largest group, surrounded by hundreds of warships that had never tasted defeat. The combined Zephyrian fleet represented 500 years of military might. Dreadnoughts the size of cities bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Battle cruisers fast enough to chase down fleeing enemies carried enough firepower to level continents. Support ships loaded with fighters and bombers spread out like a metal cloud ready to swarm any target. Admiral Veltar opened a communication channel to the One Strike using every frequency and language translator available. His message was simple and direct: human vessel, you are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Surrender immediately and your crew will be treated according to galactic war conventions. Refuse and you will be destroyed along with every human in this system. The response from Captain Dongwook was equally clear and came without hesitation. Zephyrian fleet, you are illegally occupying human territory and threatening civilian populations. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Tar laughed bitterly. The human captain sounded so calm, so confident, even though he faced impossible odds. The admiral had seen this kind of bravery before, usually right before someone died heroically and uselessly. Very well, human Veltar said. You have chosen death over wisdom. All ships attack. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of plasma torpedoes streaked through space like angry red stars. Energy beams powerful enough to melt mountains lanced toward the One Strike from every direction. The combined firepower of the Zephyrian fleet could have destroyed entire star systems. The space around the One Strike lit up brighter than the local sun as weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds all fired at once. Any normal ship, even the largest dreadnoughts, would have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The One Strike defensive systems activated, creating a shimmering barrier of energy around the ship. The barrier was not like normal shields that absorbed or deflected attacks. This was something new, something that seemed to bend space itself around the human vessel. The plasma torpedoes struck the barrier and simply disappeared as if they had never existed. The energy beams twisted and curved away from the ship like water flowing around a stone. The greatest concentrated firepower in galactic history could not even scratch the One Strike hull. Admiral Veltar stared at his tactical display in shock. His weapons officers reported all hits confirmed, but the human ship showed no damage at all. The One Strike sat in space completely unharmed, surrounded by the fading glow of weapons that should have destroyed it 100 times over. How is this possible? Veltar whispered, but the One Strike was not content to just survive the attack. Captain Dongwook gave the order his crew had been waiting for. Return fire. The human ship began launching what looked like small metallic spheres, each about the size of a shuttle. The spheres moved slowly compared to the plasma torpedoes, giving Zephyrian point defense systems time to track them. Many alien gunners dismissed them as primitive kinetic weapons and did not even bother to shoot them down. The first sphere reached a Zephyrian battle cruiser and touched the hull gently, like a soap bubble landing on water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cruiser began to disappear, starting from the point of contact. The massive warship simply ceased to exist, as if reality was being erased around it within seconds. The entire battle cruiser was gone. No explosion, no debris field, no energy signature. Just empty space where a ship carrying 3,000 crew members had been moments before. The sphere continued on its path, looking for another target. More spheres reached their targets, and the same thing happened again and again. Zephyrian warships that had dominated battlefields for centuries began vanishing from existence. The weapons were not destroying the ships, they were unmaking them at the most basic level of reality. Panic spread through the Zephyrian fleet as crews watched their sister ships disappear. Communications channels filled with terrified voices asking what was happening and begging for orders. Admiral Veltar tried to maintain discipline, but even he was shaken by weapons that defied everything he understood about physics. Pull back. He ordered all ships retreat to maximum weapons range, but the spheres kept coming. The One Strike was launching them faster, now dozens at a time. The human ship that had seemed so outnumbered was systematically erasing the largest fleet in Zephyrian history. Proud warships that had conquered star systems fled in terror. From weapons they could not understand or fight communications, Officer Mi Young aboard the One Strike reported that alien distress calls were flooding every frequency. Species that had watched the battle from safe distances were now evacuating their border systems in panic. The demonstration of human power was more terrifying than anyone had imagined. Captain Dongwook felt no joy in the destruction. His crew carried out their duties with grim efficiency, but there was no celebration on the bridge. They were not monsters who enjoyed killing. They were soldiers doing what was necessary to protect their people on the human colonies below. Commander J-Men and his family watched the battle through telescopes. The Zephyrian ships that had looked so threatening were disappearing one by one like stars going out. His daughter Sujing clapped excitedly, thinking it was still some kind of fireworks show. Look, Daddy, the bad ships are going away, she said happily as Sweetie J-Min said, holding her close. The bad ships are leaving and they won't come back. The battle lasted less than 1 hour from the moment the first shots were fired to the last Zephyrian ship fleeing the system. Everything humanity had endured for 3 centuries of galactic politics was settled. The species that had dismissed humans as primitive were learning a hard lesson about underestimating quiet neighbors. Admiral Veltar managed to escape with less than a quarter of his original fleet. The proud commander, who had never lost a battle, watched his tactical display in Nungshak as ship after ship winked out of existence. His flagship limped away from the system with hull damage from debris of his own destroyed vessels. The survivors would carry news of the battle to every corner of the galaxy within hours. Every major species would know that humanity possessed weapons beyond anything previously imagined. The age of pushing humans around was over. In the aftermath of the battle, space around the human colonies was peaceful again. The One Strike took up a patrol orbit around the system, its black hull gleaming in the light of the local star. Captain Dongwook sent a simple message that was broadcast throughout galactic space. This system is under human protection. Any future threats against human civilians will be met with appropriate force. We seek peace, but we are prepared for war. The message was received on thousands of worlds by species that had spent centuries treating humans like children who did not matter. Those same species now found themselves wondering what other surprises humanity might be hiding and whether they had made a very dangerous enemy. The galaxy had learned a new respect for the quiet species from the small blue planet. But respect born from fear was a fragile thing, and everyone wondered what would happen next. The One Strike had won a battle, but the real test would be winning the peace that followed. The age of human expansion was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 3,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species crowded into the great chamber, talking in frightened whispers about the human superweapon. The elegant hall that usually echoed with boring diplomatic speeches now buzzed with panic and fear. Ambassador Kyung-ho found himself in the strangest position of his career. For the first time since he had become Earth representative, other species were actually listening to him. The same aliens who had ignored him for 20 years now hung on his every word, hoping he could explain what humanity was planning. But Kyung-ho was just as confused as everyone else. The Earth government had told him nothing about the One Strike project. He had learned about the superweapon the same way as everyone else, by watching it destroy asteroids in space. His genuine surprise was probably the only thing keeping the Council from declaring immediate war on humanity. The Valeth representative Elder Hey One stood to address the Council. She had always been kind to humans, but now she looked worried and scared like everyone else. We must understand what the humans are planning, she said in her musical voice. This weapon changes everything we thought we knew about galactic power. If they have one ship like this, how many more might they have? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Every species was asking the same questions. How long had humans been building super weapons in secret? What other surprises were they hiding? Why had they waited until now to reveal their true strength? A Keth delegate jumped up and down excitedly, as his species always did when nervous. We must evacuate Border systems immediately, he squeaked. If the humans decide to attack, we need to be ready to run. But the more council leader. Zephyra raised one of her massive, tree-like arms for silence. Her ancient voice filled the chamber like wind through a forest. We should not assume the humans mean to attack us, she said slowly. They have had this weapon for some time, but only used it defensively. Some representatives nodded, but others shook their heads. The Regelian ambassador stood up with his scales shimmering with fear. How can we trust them? He hissed. They have been lying to us for decades, pretending to be weak, while building doomsday weapons. Ambassador Kyung-ho finally stood to speak. The chamber fell completely silent as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. He felt the weight of his species' future on his shoulders. Every word he said now could mean the difference between peace and galactic war. My government has not told me about this weapon, he said honestly, but I know my people. We do not want to conquer anyone, we just want to live in peace and raise our families. The only reason this ship exists is because some species refuse to treat us with basic respect. His words seemed to calm some representatives, but others still looked suspicious. The debate continued for hours, with different species arguing about what to do. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to form an alliance against humanity. A few suggested immediate surrender. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire was mobilizing for the biggest military operation in their history. Emperor Zendek had called up every reserve fleet, every mothballed warship, every ally who owed them favors. The Zephyrian war machine that had conquered 17-star systems was being pointed at one human ship in the Imperial Palace on Zephyr Prime. The Emperor stood before a holographic display showing troop movements. His forearms gestured angrily as he spoke to his military commanders. The giant red-skinned alien was famous for his temper, and right now he was furious. No primitive species will embarrass the Empire, he roared. These humans think one lucky weapon makes them our equals. We will show them the true meaning of power. General Kazran, one of the Empire's most experienced commanders, looked worried. Your Majesty, the reports from Admiral Veltar suggest this human weapon is beyond anything we have seen. Perhaps we should consider diplomatic solutions. The Emperor turned his burning eyes toward the general. Diplomatic solutions? You sound like a coward. Kazran, the Zephyrian Empire does not negotiate with insects. We crush them. Orders went out across Zephyrian space. Every available warship was to converge on the Kepler 442 system within 48 hours. The fleet being assembled would be larger than anything seen since the Great War 500 years ago. Thousands of ships carrying millions of soldiers were heading toward one human vessel on Earth. The reaction to the one strike demonstration was mixed. Most humans had known nothing about the secret weapon project. They watched news broadcasts in amazement as their species suddenly commanded respect and fear from across the galaxy. In the city of Seoul, protesters led by peace activist Jin-woo marched through the streets demanding the government negotiate instead of fighting. Jin-woo had lost his brother in a mining accident caused by faulty alien equipment. He blamed galactic politics for many of humanity's problems. But he did not want war. We should use diplomacy, not weapons, he told reporters. Showing off our military power will only make other species more afraid of us. But in the same city, veteran Captain Minho led counter-protests supporting the government's actions. He had served on merchant ships that were attacked by pirates while alien authorities did nothing to help. He was tired of humanity being pushed around for 300 years. We tried being nice, he said at a rally. It got us nothing but disrespect and abuse. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that humans fight back when cornered. The Earth government led by President Unji tried to calm both sides. She gave a speech that was broadcast across human space and transmitted to alien governments throughout the galaxy. Humanity does not seek war, she said, but we will no longer accept being treated as second-class citizens. The one strike exists to protect human lives and human rights. We hope for peace, but we are prepared for any response. Dr. Dejin worked frantically in her laboratory, making final adjustments to the one strike systems. Her team monitored the approaching Zephyrian fleets and calculated battle scenarios. Most of the numbers looked good, but she worried about the unknown variables. The one strike was powerful, but it had never been tested in real combat against thousands of enemy ships. The physics behind their weapons required pushing several alien technologies beyond what other species considered Safe limits. Humans seemed willing to accept risks that made other civilizations nervous. Admiral Tejo studied intelligence reports about the massive Zephyrian fleet assembly. 3 separate battle groups were converging on the Kepler 442 system. Each group was larger than most species' entire navies combined. The Zephyrians were bringing enough firepower to destroy solar systems. This will be the real test, he told his staff. If the one strike can survive this battle, the galaxy will never underestimate humanity again. If it fails, we may have just signed our species' death warrant. Captain Dong-wook and his crew remained calm despite the approaching threat. They had trained for this moment for years. Every system on the ship had been tested and retested. The crew knew their jobs and trusted their equipment, but they also knew they might not survive the coming battle. Communications Officer Mi Young reported constant streams of messages from across the galaxy. Some species offered to help humanity, others demanded they surrender the superweapon immediately. Most just wanted to know what humans were planning to do next. The one strike continued its silent patrol of the Kepler 442 system, protecting the human colonies below. The ship that had started as humanity's greatest secret was now the focus of galactic attention. Every species was watching to see what would happen when the unstoppable force met the immovable. Objecting deep space, the largest military fleet in Zephyrian history, moved toward its destiny. The proud species that had never known defeat was about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would blink first, but Captain Dong-wook had no intention of blinking. The time for human patience was over. The Zephyrian warships hung in space around the human colony like hungry wolves surrounding sheep. Admiral Veltar commanded the fleet from his massive flagship, which was bigger than most space stations. He had conquered 17 different star systems in his long life and never lost a single battle. Today would be another easy victory against the weak humans. On the bridge of his ship, the sensor officer, So Young, kept checking her equipment. Something was wrong with the readings, but she could not figure out what. The sensors showed something big coming toward them from human space, but the numbers made no sense. Admiral, the readings are very strange, So Young said nervously. The computer says something huge is coming, but it cannot tell me how big. Roltar walked over to look at her screen with his 4 arms crossed. He had seen every type of ship in the galaxy, from tiny human traders to massive tree ships. Nothing surprised him anymore. Show me, he said in his deep voice. As So Young pointed at the display. The energy signature is larger than our biggest dreadnought, sir, but that cannot be right. Humans do not have ships that big. The Admiral laughed. Stupid human tricks, he said. They are probably dragging some old space junk behind their ships to make our sensors confused. Do not worry about it. But So Young was still worried. She had been working with sensors for 50 years and had never seen readings like this. The signature was not just big, it was enormous. Bigger than anything in their databases, bigger than the ancient ships left behind by dead civilizations down on the planet's surface in the human colony. Commander Jamin watched the sky through his binoculars. The Zephyrian ships looked like dark metal clouds blocking out the stars. Most of the colonists were hiding in underground shelters, but some brave ones stayed to watch what would happen. Jamin had been a soldier before he came to this planet to grow food and raise his family. He knew about war, and he knew the human colony ships above them had no chance against the Zephyrian fleet. The colony ships were built for carrying people and supplies, not for fighting. His wife Kyungmi came up beside him, holding their young daughter. Sujin, the little girl, was only 5 years old and did not understand why everyone was scared. Daddy, why are the big ships up there? Sujin asked. They are visitors from far away, Jamin said, not wanting to scare her. But they might have to go away soon. A message came over the colony radio system from Earth Command. All colonists should stay in safe places. Help is coming. Do not give up hope. That was all the message said, but it made Jamin feel a little better. Someone on Earth cared about them high above the planet. The Zephyrian sensor readings were getting stranger. So Young called her supervisor over to look at the screens. The energy signature was getting closer, and now it was clear. This was not space junk or sensor tricks. This was one massive ship, sir. I think we need to tell the Admiral. So Young said. Her voice was shaking now. The readings show a ship almost 15 kilometers long. That is 3 times bigger than our flagship. The supervisor looked at the screen and his face changed color. Zephyrians were not easy to scare, but these readings were impossible according to their information. Humans had never built anything bigger than a small cruiser. How could they have a ship this size? They rushed to Admiral Veltar, who was planning his attack. On the human colonies, when they showed him the sensor data, he laughed at first, then he looked more carefully at the numbers. His laughing stopped. This must be wrong. He said, "Run the sensors again." They ran the sensors 5 more times. The results were always the same. Something huge was coming from human space, and it would arrive in less than 1 hour. The admiral ordered all his ships to spread out and get ready for whatever was coming. When the human ship finally dropped out of hyperspace, every alien in the system stopped what they were doing to stare. The one strike was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Most ships in the galaxy were built to look beautiful, with smooth curves and bright colors that showed off their builders' artistic skills. The one strike looked like it was built for only one purpose: killing. It was a long black ship that seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. The hull was covered with weapon ports like the eyes of some giant space monster at the back. Massive engines glowed with barely controlled power, but the most frightening thing about the ship was its silence. Most ships would send messages when they arrived demanding surrender or explaining what they wanted. The one strike said nothing. It just moved to the edge of the system and waited like a patient hunter. Admiral Veltar had fought space pirates, automated defense systems, and rebel fleets, but he had never seen anything that made him feel afraid the way this ship did. His species had 4 hearts, and all of them were beating fast. "Now send a message to that ship," he ordered. "Demand they identify themselves and state their business." The communications officer tried to contact the one strike, but got no answer. The human ship just sat there in space like a giant black knife pointed at the Zephyrian fleeton. The human colony's people pressed against windows and viewing ports to see the mysterious ship. Some colonists cheered, thinking help had finally arrived. Others were scared because the ship looked so dangerous. Even Commander Jamin, who had seen many warships, felt nervous looking at it. The news about the huge human ship spread through subspace communications faster than wildfire. Every species in the galaxy had spies and traders in the Kepler 442 system. Within hours, beings on hundreds of different worlds knew that humans had built something impossible. On the Valith homeworld, ambassador Hey, one received an emergency message from her government. The message had pictures of the one strike and asked if she knew anything about human military capabilities. She had to tell them she knew nothing. The humans had kept this ship completely secret. The Galactic Council called another emergency meeting, but this time the mood was very different. Instead of ignoring the human problem, everyone wanted to know how a primitive species had built a ship that big. The council chambers filled with worried voices asking the same questions over and over. How long have humans been building ships like this? How many more do they have? What other secrets are they hiding? Ambassador Kyung Ho was as surprised as everyone else. He sent urgent messages back to Earth asking for information about the one strike, but got no answers. The Earth government told him to stay calm and wait for instructions back. In the Kepler 442 system, Admiral Veltar made a decision. He would test this mysterious human ship and see if it was as dangerous as it looked. His fastest attack cruiser, the Stormblade, would approach the one strike and demand its surrender. If the humans wanted to play games, he would show them what happened to species that challenged the Zephyrian Empire. The Stormblade began moving toward the one strike. While the rest of the fleet watched, the cruiser was fast and heavily armed with enough firepower to destroy most ships in a few minutes. Veltar expected the humans would either run away or try to negotiate. Instead, the one strike did something that changed everything. A single beam of pure energy shot out from the human ship, but not at the approaching cruiser. The beam hit a small asteroid floating at the edge of the system, about the size of a city building. The asteroid simply disappeared. Not destroyed or broken apart, but completely gone, as if it had never existed at all. The Zephyrian fleet went completely quiet. Every alien watching the battle felt their blood turn cold. That level of power was theoretically impossible with known science. The energy required to completely destroy matter at the molecular level was beyond anything any species had achieved. Admiral Veltar stared at his tactical display where the asteroid had been just seconds before his species had weapons. That could shatter planets, but this was different. This was the power to unmake things, to erase them from existence. Completely, the Stormblade stopped moving toward the one strike. Its captain was not stupid enough to continue approaching a ship that could make things disappear with a single shot. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Veltar felt real fear. The humans had not just built a big ship, they had built something with technology that should not exist, something that could end his entire fleet with a few shots. The galaxy suddenly realized they had been very, very wrong about humanity. The silence in space was broken by panicked communications between Zephrion's ships. Admiral Veltar tried to stay calm, but his hands were shaking as he watched the empty space where the asteroid had been. His officers were asking questions he could not answer. "Sir, what kind of weapon can do that?" Communications Officer Tackman asked. His voice was full of fear. "I do not know," Veltar said quietly. He had studied every weapon system in the galaxy for over 200 years. Nothing in his experience could explain what they had just seen on Earth in the secret military command center. Fleet Admiral Tejo watched the battle through live feeds from spy satellites hidden throughout the system. He had been planning for this moment for 30 years. Ever since the day he realized humanity would never be safe until they could defend themselves. The one strike was the result of humanity's greatest minds working together in secret, while the galaxy thought humans were just simple traders and farmers. The best scientists and engineers had been building something that would change everything. Dr. The Jinn stood beside Admiral Tejo in the command center. She was the lead scientist who had made the one strike possible. Her team had spent decades studying every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on through trade salvage and sometimes theft. They did not just copy what other species had built, they improved it, combined it, and pushed it beyond what anyone thought was possible. The weapon that had just destroyed the asteroid was a combination of 6 different alien technologies merged together with human innovation and powered by contained antimatter reactions. Most species would never risk antimatter reactions that powerful. They were too dangerous, too unpredictable, but humans had always been willing to take risks that other species would not even consider. "Admiral, the Zephyrians are requesting communication," Dr. the Jinn said, looking at her screens. "They want to talk." "Let them wait," Admiral Tejo said. "They have had 300 years to talk to us with respect. Now they can learn what happens when you push humans too far on the bridge of the one strike." Captain Dong-wook stood calmly watching the enemy fleet. His crew of 300 was made up of volunteers who knew they might not survive this mission, but they also knew their actions would determine whether humanity remained weak or became strong. Communications Officer Mi Young reported that emergency messages were flooding through subspace. Every species in the galaxy was trying to understand what had just happened. Some were calling for peace talks, others were evacuating their border systems in panic. "Captain, the Zephyrian flagship is hailing US," Mi Young said. "They are demanding we surrender immediately." Captain Dong-wook smiled. "Tell them we are here to collect our people from the colonies below. Any attempt to harm human civilians will be met with appropriate response." The message was sent to Admiral Veltar, who read it with growing anger. How dare these primitive humans threaten him? He commanded the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history. His ships could destroy planets. Yet something about that demonstration made him hesitate. He decided to test the humans again. If their weapon was so powerful, why had they only destroyed a small asteroid? Maybe they could only fire it once. Maybe it took a long time to recharge. He ordered 3 of his medium cruisers to move closer to the human colonies. The one strike responded immediately. 3 more energy beams shot out from different weapon ports. Each beam targeted a different asteroid floating in the system. All 3 asteroids vanished completely within seconds of each other. Message was clear: the one strike could fire multiple shots without recharging. It had enough firepower to destroy Admiral Veltar's entire fleet whenever it chose to. The only reason the Zephyrian ships still existed was because the humans were showing mercy. Back on the human colony, Commander Jaemin watched the demonstration with amazement. His daughter Sujin clapped her hands, thinking it was some kind of fireworks show. She did not understand that they had just witnessed the most powerful weapon in galactic history. "Daddy, the big black ship is helping us, right?" Sujin asked. Yes, sweetie, Jaemin said, holding her close. The big ship is here to protect us. Other colonists were coming out of their shelters, now pointing at the sky and talking excitedly. For months they had lived in fear of the Zephyrian fleet. Now they felt hope for the first time. The impossible had happened. Someone was finally standing up for humanity. The news of the second demonstration spread even faster than the first. Alien governments that had ignored humanity for centuries suddenly found themselves in emergency meetings trying to understand what this meant for galactic power structures. On the Valeth homeworld, the Council of Elders called Ambassador Hey One home immediately. They needed to know everything she had learned about human capabilities during her years of diplomatic service. She told them the truth that humans had seemed weak and primitive with no advanced technology, but clearly we were wrong. Elder Tae-One said, studying video footage of the one strike. The humans have been hiding their true capabilities for decades. How could we miss something this significant? The same question was being asked on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Intelligence agencies scrambled to review every interaction they had ever had with humans, looking for clues they had missed. Trade records were analyzed to see if humans had been secretly buying advanced materials. Military observers tried to figure out how humanity had developed such powerful weapons. The Keth Confederacy immediately recalled all their fleets to defensive positions around their home systems. The small green aliens had always been nervous about stronger species, but now they were terrified. If humans could build ships like the One Strike, what was to stop them from conquering everyone, even the ancient? More species who rarely showed emotion were disturbed by the demonstration. Their tree-like form swayed with worry as they calculated the implications. Zephyra, the council leader, sent urgent messages to all member species calling for calm and requesting an immediate diplomatic solution, but the Zephyrian Empire was too proud to back down. Emperor Zandek received reports of the demonstration with rage rather than fear. His species had ruled their part of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. No primitive upstart race would be allowed to challenge their authority. The Emperor sent orders to Admiral Veltar, destroy the human ship at all costs. The honor of the Empire was at stake. If they showed weakness now, other species might think they could challenge Zephyrian power too. Admiral Veltar received the orders with a heavy heart. He was a warrior, but he was not stupid. The One Strike had already proven it could destroy his entire fleet. But orders were orders, and he had sworn an oath to obey his emperor. He began moving his ships into attack formation, knowing that many of them would not survive. The next hour his crews were brave, but they were also afraid. They had signed up to fight other normal ships, not impossible weapons that could erase matter from existence. Captain Dongwook watched the Zephyrian fleet preparing for battle and felt sad that it had come to this. Humanity had not wanted war. They had only wanted to be left alone to build their colonies and raise their families. But if the galaxy insisted on testing human resolve, they would learn why that was a mistake. The One Strike began powering up all its weapon systems. The ship that had been built in secret was about to show the galaxy what happened when humanity stopped being patient. The age of pushing humans around was about to end forever. Admiral Tejo spoke into his communicator from Earth Command. Begin final phase. Captain, the galaxy needs to understand that humanity will not be bullied anymore. The demonstration was over. Now came the real test. The big meeting room on Space Station Alpha 7 was full of worried aliens from all over the galaxy. Ambassador Kyung Ho from Earth stood near the back of the room like always. The humans always got the worst seats at these big meetings. The other aliens treated them like little kids who did not know much about anything. Kyung Ho looked around the room and saw all the important people from the 12 biggest groups in the galaxy. The tall blue Valeth people stood near the front with their fancy clothes. The scary-looking Zephyrians with their forearms crossed were talking in angry voices. The small green Keth delegates were jumping around, worried about something. The room was so loud with different alien voices that Kyung Ho could barely think. His friend Haewon from the Valeth Federation walked over to him. She was one of the few aliens who was nice to humans most of the time. Her big blue eyes looked scared today, which was not normal for her people. The Valeth were usually very calm about everything. What is happening, Haewon? Kyung Ho asked her in a quiet voice. Why did they call this emergency meeting so fast? She pointed to the big screen at the front of the room. The screen showed a star map with lots of red dots moving. Around the red dots were Zephyrian warships, and there were so many of them that parts of the map looked completely red. The Zephyrians are moving their biggest fleet toward the Kepler 442 system, she said. Your human colony there refused to leave. When the Zephyrians told them to go, the Zephyrians say that system belongs to them now, and they want all humans out. Kyung-ho felt his stomach drop. The Kepler 442 system had 3 planets where humans lived. They had been there for 20 years. Building farms and cities, the people there were not soldiers, they were just families trying to make new homes. The thought of Zephyrian warships shooting at them made him feel sick. But we were there first, he said. We followed all the rules when we claimed that system. The Galactic Council said it was okay for us to be there. High One looks sad. I know, but the Zephyrians say they found some old papers that prove they own that system a long time ago. They say human claims do not matter because humans are too new to the galaxy. This was always the problem for humans in space. They had only been part of the Galactic Council for 300 years, which seemed like a long time to humans, but was nothing to aliens who lived for thousands of years. The other species treated humans like they were babies who just learned to walk. The big screen changed to show live pictures from the Kepler 442 system. Kyung-ho could see the human colony ships trying to protect the planets, but they looked so small next to the huge Zephyrian battleships. The Zephyrian ships were as big as cities and covered in weapons that could destroy whole planets. Look at them, Haewon said, pointing at the screen. Those Zephyrian ships could wipe out your colonies in minutes. Why are your people not running away? Because we are tired of running, Kyung-ho said, but his voice was quiet. He did not want the other aliens to hear him. For 300 years, humans had been pushed around by everyone in the galaxy. When humans wanted to trade with someone, the aliens would give them bad deals. When humans found new planets to live on, other species would come and take the good ones away. When humans tried to speak up in council meetings, everyone would ignore them or tell them to be quiet. The Zephyrian ambassador Valkarn stood up at the front of the room. He was huge even for his species, with dark red skin and metal teeth. When he talked, everyone got quiet because the Zephyrians had the biggest army in the galaxy. The human infestation in the Kepler 442 system ends today, Valkarn said in his scary voice. We have given them time to leave, but they refuse to listen to their betters. Our fleet will remove them by force if needed. Kyung-ho wanted to stand up and say something, but he knew it would not help. The other species would just tell him to sit down and be quiet like they always did. Humans had no real power in the galaxy. They had small ships and weak weapons compared to everyone else. The council leader Zephyra from the ancient Moor species called for order. She was thousands of years old and had seen many wars. The Moor people were like walking trees and were supposed to be very wise. We must find a peaceful way to solve this problem, she said in her slow, deep voice. War helps no one in the long run. But Valkarn just laughed. The Zephyrians do not negotiate with insects, he said, looking right at Kyung-ho. The humans will learn their place or be removed from the galaxy. Kyung-ho felt his face get hot with anger, but he stayed quiet. He had been trained to be a diplomat, and losing his temper would not help his people. But inside he was screaming. He was tired of being called names and treated like dirt by species who thought they were better than humans. The meeting went on for hours with different aliens talking about the problem, but nobody really cared about the humans caught in the middle. Some species said the Zephyrians were being too mean, but none of them wanted to fight. The strongest military in the galaxy, other species, said humans should just give up and find somewhere else to leave. As the hours passed, Kyung-ho got more and more frustrated. Every solution the aliens talked about involved humans giving up or backing down. Nobody suggested that maybe the Zephyrians were wrong. Nobody stood up for the human families who would lose their homes finally. Near the end of the meeting, something strange happened. A message came in on the emergency channels. It was from Earth, from someone called Captain Dong-wook of the Terran Defense Force. Kyung-ho had never heard of him before. The message was very short and did not make much sense. It had some numbers that looked like coordinates in space, a time. That was about 1 day from now, and 3 words that nobody understood. 1 strike incoming. When Kyung-ho read the message out loud to the council, some aliens laughed, others looked confused. The Zephyrian ambassador Valkarn just smiled with his Metal teeth showing more empty human threats, he said. What are they going to do, send their little mining ships to fight our battle fleet? But something about the message worried Kyung-ho. He had been Earth ambassador for 20 years, and he had never seen a message like this one. The Terran Defense Force was just a small group that protected Earth merchant ships from pirates. They did not have big warships or powerful weapons. The meeting ended with no solution. The Zephyans would attack the human colonies in one day, and nobody was going to stop them. As the aliens left the meeting room, many of them seemed sad, but not sad enough to actually healthy one. Came over to Kyung-ho before she left. I'm sorry about your people, she said. I wish there was something we could do. Kyung-ho thanked her, but his mind was on that strange message, one strike incoming. What did it mean? Why would Earth send such a weird message at a time like this? The more he thought about it, the more worried he got. That night, Kyung-ho sent messages back to Earth asking about Captain Dong-wook and this one-strike thing, but all he got back were orders to stay at his post and wait. The Earth government told him not to worry about things he did not understand. As he tried to sleep that night, Kyung-ho kept thinking about all the human families in the Kepler 442 system. They were probably scared and getting ready to fight or run away. In less than one day, they would face the biggest war fleet in Zephyrian history, with nothing but their hope and their courage, but maybe that would be enough. Maybe humans had more fight in them than the galaxy knew. Maybe it was time for everyone to find out what happened when you pushed humans too far. The galaxy was about to learn something new about the quiet species from the small blue planet, something that would change everything forever. The news of the Kepler 442 battle spread across the galaxy faster than any message in recorded history. Within 6 hours, every major species knew that humanity had destroyed the largest Zephyrian fleet ever assembled using weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. The quiet species from the corner of galactic space had become the most feared military power overnight. The Galactic Council chambers fell completely silent when Ambassador Kyung-ho entered for the first time since the battle. The same beings who had barely noticed him for 20 years now watched his every step with nervous attention. Some representatives actually moved away from him as if he might be dangerous just by being human when Kyung-ho asked to speak. The chamber became so quiet you could hear the air recycling systems. The Valeth Elder Haewon, who had always been kind to humans, now looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear. Her musical voice shook slightly when she granted him permission to address the council. Fellow representatives, Kyung-ho began, my government has asked me to clarify humanity's position in galactic affairs. We do not seek to conquer or dominate anyone. We simply want the same rights and respect given to any civilized species. The simple words carried weight they had never possessed before. When humans asked for respect, now everyone listened carefully. The Keth delegate who used to interrupt human speeches sat perfectly still. The Regelian ambassador who had always dismissed human concerns now took careful notes. We propose a new framework for galactic relations, Kyung-ho continued. One based on mutual respect rather than the old system where stronger species push around weaker ones. The age of might makes right should end for all our benefit, but the galaxy response to humanity's newfound power surprised everyone. Instead of demanding tribute or forcing other species to bow down, President Unji and the Earth government chose a different path. They wanted partnership, not domination. The One Strike project had been defensive in nature, designed to ensure human survival, not to build an empire. This confused many alien species. The Zephyrians would have used such power to conquer half the galaxy. The ancient more would have demanded tribute from everyone. The fact that humans asked for nothing except fair treatment was harder to understand than their super weapons on Earth. The victory celebration was mixed with worry. Captain Dong-wook and his crew returned home as heroes, but they did not enjoy the fame. The captain gave interviews where he emphasized that the One Strike was meant to protect human colonies, not to threaten other species. We did not build this ship because we wanted war, Dong-wook told Galactic media. We built it because we were tired of being pushed around. Every species has the right to defend themselves and their families. The interviews were broadcast across the galaxy and helped calm some of the panic. Different species began to realize that humans were not planning to become galactic conquerors. They just wanted to be left alone to build their colonies and live their lives in peace. Dr. Dejin found herself at the center of a scientific revolution. Species that had dismissed human technology for centuries now begged for access to her research. The weapons that had destroyed the Zephyrian fleet represented breakthrough in physics that could benefit all galactic civilization, but Earth was careful about what technologies they shared. The government remembered 300 years of being cheated in trade deals and having their discoveries stolen by more advanced species. This time humanity would be partners, not victims. The Zephyrian Empire faced a choice that would determine their future emperor. Xanthek could continue fighting and risk the complete destruction of his civilization, or he could accept the new reality and try to make peace with humanity. The emperor was wise enough to recognize when the balance of power had shifted completely. Admiral Veltar returned with news of the battle had shaken the entire imperial government. Ships that could erase matter from existence were beyond anything the empire could fight. Emperor Xanthek swallowed his pride and sent a diplomatic mission to Earth. The proud species that had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 2,000 years asked for peace talks. The message was simple and direct. The Zephyrian Empire recognizes human sovereignty over the Kepler 442 system and requests formal diplomatic relations between our species. We wish to avoid further conflict and find peaceful solutions to our differences. President Unji accepted the peace offer but made it clear that any future attacks on human civilians would be met with the same response. The Zephyrians agreed and began withdrawing their forces from systems near human territory. Other species quickly followed the Zephyrian example. The Valith Federation offered trade agreements that actually favored humans. For the first time, the Keth Confederacy proposed joint exploration missions to distant star systems. Even the ancient Moor invited human representatives to their sacred council meetings. Ambassador Kyungho found his job completely changed overnight. Instead of begging for scraps at council meetings, he was now courted by every major species. Everyone wanted to be humanity friend and ally. Nobody wanted to be their enemy. The One Strike took up permanent patrol duties in human space, becoming a symbol of Earth military power. The ship that had once been humanity's greatest secret was now known throughout